Today's episode of New Game Plus is brought to you by Hob, the Definitive Edition. From the creators of Torchlight 1 and 2, this Definitive Edition exists now on the Nintendo Switch. It's a single-player adventure game where you go on a breathtaking journey through ruins of a lost civilization. And along the way, you'll fight some crazy cool creatures, unlock some really tight puzzles, and go on a breathtaking adventure. One of the things I personally dig about this game is the art style. You can tell that it was developed for other consoles, but at the end of the day, it looks great here on the Switch. And of course, when it comes to Definitive Editions, a ton of improvements have been made. Improved frame rates, better UI, HD Rumble with the Switch, and even a bunch of new extras like concept art and more. So if you want to check out Hob the Definitive Edition, check out the link in the description box down below. And hey, buying the game supports us. So thank you to the devs for sponsoring today's episode, and I hope you enjoy it. Hob the Definitive Edition, available now on the Nintendo Switch. Some games start small, and then have a bigger impact than you'd expect. That's exactly what happened when Valve released Portal as part of the Orange Box, and then the internet immediately devoured it, and so did I. What began as a little puzzle game thrown into a collection to sweeten the deal blossomed into a full-blown cultural phenomenon of the video game world, with Glados quotes and companion cubes all over the place, not to mention the much larger sequel that came out a couple of years later. It's tough to remember how surprising it was when this deceptively simple-seeming little puzzle game took the gaming world by storm. And we'll find out today if it earned its place in the pop culture pantheon when I complete Portal. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Completionist New Game Plus, a show where I complete the first 120 games from the original Completionist lineup. More on that in the description box down below. Now, I love Portal. I love the game a lot. It's one of my favorites. Before the show, I was familiar with it, and I really only played Portal 2, so I got to go back and play Portal 1, and I really was blown away by what there was there. I think, thinking about it now, however, it's kind of sad, because everyone loves Portal, they know Portal, but they know more about the memes and the songs, and kind of everything about the game, and some know that without even playing the game. So today, I'm taking a look once again at Portal to see if all those factors still hold up today. Let's begin. Now, Portal is a small game, and I don't mean that in a bad way at all. It's not only short, but it was pushed out into the world with no expectations. And maybe that's why people latched onto it so hard, because it was so unexpected. This was a tiny puzzle game thrown into a collection as a bonus, and it was not just good, but very goddamn good. Portal was created by a team of students who were hired by Valve after the company had stumbled across a freeware game they had made called Narbacular Drop. Maybe not as catchy of a name as Portal, but it definitely was a little bit more fun to say. Narbacular. Narbacular Drop used a similar Portal mechanic, so the team already had the solid foundation to build off of when they were hired by Valve. They then tied it into the Half-Life series so they could use Half-Life 2's assets because everybody loves saving money. But they really hit gold when they developed the game's trademark goofy but still dark style of humor, because Portal is an incredibly well-crafted puzzle game. But the game's intensely quotable nature helped it catch on as quickly as it did. And quoted people did, over and over again for years. You still know at least 3 people with the plush companion cube guaranteed. If you're a person with an internet connection, there's a pretty good chance you've been exposed to some of the game's jokes or imagery. But fortunately, it had dope gameplay to match, and everyone started clamoring for a sequel, which showed up a few years later. And while that sequel would be even bigger, better, and more hilarious, a big part of the first game's appeal was that it was bite-sized and accessible, which fortunately means that completing it should be a piece of cake. I'll be beating the campaign, which is only a few hours long, but once I've done that, I'll still have to do advanced mode, which presents harder versions of some of the same levels, along with the challenge maps, which challenge you to complete puzzles with a certain number of portals or steps or time spent. And just so you know, I'm gonna be getting gold medals on all of this stuff as well. After that, I just have to clean up the achievements, all of which were pretty doable. It should only be a few hours altogether, but they'll be hours well spent. I'm just hoping the internet hasn't ruined all the game's best jokes, because the internet just loves ruining jokes. Portal is still fun, funny, and just the right amount of brain-breaking. It gets you using physics to solve problems while also making you laugh. And if the game's biggest problem is that it leaves you wanting more, well then, that's a pretty good problem to have. Portal also forgoes anything resembling exposition, dropping you in the middle of a sterile lab environment, guiding you through a series of tests by the not-so-soothing voice of an AI named Glados. As far as setups go, it's simple and efficient. Here's a gun that shoots portals, here's a series of challenges, and go. Of course, the game has more twists and turns up its sleeves. And a lot of the fun of the game is watching the relationship change between silent player character Shell and the increasingly unhinged Glados. Those little twists and mini narratives help set Portal apart. And what's even more impressive is that literally all the storytelling is communicated through gameplay. All the character moments and jokes happen while you are solving puzzles, creating a direct link between your actions and the evolution of the story. No cutscenes, no forced world building, just a pure sense of discovery, which is why it's a bummer that the memification of the game has taken some of that discovery away. As soon as the cake was mentioned, I knew it was a lie, because the internet had been yelling at me for months. I know it's not the game's fault, but still, that sucks. And going back into the game this time around, the jokes and the reveals obviously didn't land as hard because I had heard them all before, but I couldn't even really latch onto a memory of being surprised the first time. Fortunately, no one was able to ruin the game's puzzles for me this time around, and they're just as fun now as I remember them being. I'd forgotten most of the exact solutions, but I remembered a lot of techniques used to arrive at those solutions. The overall setup is still so beautifully simple. You can shoot 2 portals, one blue and one orange, and whatever goes into one comes out the other while maintaining its velocity. And that's it. Now go use physics to figure it all out, you dummy. Everybody loves physics. But the success of a game like this all comes down to how well designed the puzzles and levels are. And the ones here are flippin' perfect, especially in the way that they evolve. The game mostly teaches you how to play through less instructive means. There's a lot of showing here rather than telling, and that's awesome. You're truly rewarded for just trying out stuff until something works. And the increasingly difficult levels slowly expand your idea of what's possible with just 2 measly portals. Many of the puzzles even have multiple solutions, with massive test chambers later on that give you options rather than holding your hand until you find the right thing to do. By the time the aesthetic of the level starts to change near the end of the game, your brain has been trained how to think with portals. The puzzle design is textbook, and it's also a way more fun method of learning physics than out of a textbook. And that's largely because this game is hilarious, while most physics textbooks are not. In fact, I'm willing to bet that no one has ever had a physics teacher as funny as Glados in this game. No, not even Mr. Jenkins himself, who would bring his guitar to class and sing songs about inertia or whatever, could save this one. Ellen McLean hits it out of the park with her voice acting, and the sequel even expanded the voice cast with big names like J.K. Simmons and Stephen Merchant. But in this one, it's all on Glados' shoulders. The game's sense of humor gets increasingly darker as the player gets to know Glados better, and while it's impossible to experience the game's funniest moments in the game for the first time again, it's still just as incredibly charming on repeat playthroughs. The game even gives personalities to those little dumb turrets, or even to the companion cube, which is literally just a cube that tons of people bought plushie versions of for cuddling purposes. Now that, my friends, is kind of bonkers. A lot of it comes down to how simple the design is. With the aesthetic sensibility of an evil Apple store, everything in the Aperture Labs now feels iconic. This game made the world fall in love with cubes and circles. It turned a blank white laboratory into a playground of portal-based self-discovery. It makes science fun, which is something that Mr. Jenkins and his guitar were never able to do. Sorry, Mr. J. I had forgotten just enough about this game that the later puzzles took some figuring out, but the main story still ended up being a quick experience for just a few hours long. But fortunately, there's the advanced mode and the challenge maps for those of us who know that science is most rewarding when it doesn't come easily. The advanced mode is just some of the puzzles from the main game, but with elements added or removed to make them harder. It's a good way to force the players to think even more outside the box than they already have to. But it's the challenges that are the real challenge. Really, I thought I'd be able to find a better word there, but You know how it is. Some of the challenges require you to solve a puzzle with a certain number of portals, or to take fewer steps by traveling exclusively through portals. Some of them are basic time trials where you have to complete a challenge quickly. These challenges require a totally different way of thinking than the campaign and appeal to a different part of the game's audience. Portal is great for a quick, casual experience, but getting gold medals on all of these challenges would probably make a more casual gamer want to tear their hair out. But I have to do it, not just for the sake of completion, but to make sure I got all of the Steam achievements. A lot of the other achievements are pretty self-explanatory and simple, with the exception of Transmission Received, which wasn't even added to the game until 2010 as part of the lead up to Portal 2. It requires the gathering of all the game's radios and depositing them in a specific location. It cannot be done on your first run through of the game though, and while it's not super difficult, it's the only achievement that I would really call tedious. Otherwise though, I had no problem coming back to Portal. It's still a blast, and I had forgotten just enough that there was still a sense of discovery, even if I could never get back the experience of playing the game for the first time, or living in a time before people ran around yelling, "The cake is a lie" at each other. Aw man, those were the days. Playing Portal's short campaign is what gets you the advanced mode and challenges, but otherwise, there's not that much to be unlocked here, which makes sense given the game's overall size. And getting gold medals in the challenges feels good, but doesn't get me anything tangible. There's no big bonus for getting 100% of anything on everything either. But Portal does have one big reward for its players, and it comes at the end of the campaign in the form of the song Still Alive. Written by Jonathan Colton and performed by Ellen McLean as GLaDOS, Still Alive is just as funny as I remembered, and weirdly catchy. It's great to spend a little extra time with GLaDOS at the end of the game, and it's perfectly in keeping with the rest of Portal's vibe that you're rewarded with something so incredibly silly at the end. It's things like that that make playing Portal such a breezy, enjoyable experience. Some of the challenges are a bit frustrating, almost making you a speedrunner if you will, but the campaign is so quick and funny and fun, it's definitely worth revisiting. While I replayed Portal, there were 19 test chambers escaped in the main campaign, 15 achievements unlocked, 6.5 hours of total playtime, and 0 slices of cake. I really should have seen that one coming. If you haven't played Portal in a while, you should definitely spend another couple of hours with it. And if you feel like going hard, you can also do the challenges in advanced chambers. But that's definitely not for everyone. If you just can't get enough of Portal though, those maps are there for you. But then, so is the sequel, so go play that then afterwards. It's great. Now, it's hard to overstate my satisfaction with Portal even a decade later. This was a triumph, huge success, etc. It's still funny, the puzzles are still solid, and the biggest problem is that there's not quite enough game. And yeah, that's what the sequel is for, and I definitely recommend checking that out after you've beat this one. But at the end of the day, I think one of the biggest factors is that the challenge maps and the advanced modes are really fun, but as a completionist, they still will drive you crazy. You still have to be the best at what you do. And any game that requires you to be a speedrunner to be the best tends to kind of take the wind out of my sails. So, with that in mind, guys, I still give this game my completionist rating of finish it.
Finish it!
That's all the time we have for today, guys, so please, as always, let me know what you thought about today's episode somewhere on the internet. If you like the show, hit that like button, leave a comment down below, and hey, on our Patreon, we're doing a cool thing where I actually do commentary, DVD behind-the-scenes trivia about episodes of the show. So if you want to check that out, head over to patreon.com/thecompletionist. Guys, I've been Gerard, and I'll see you next week for the brand new episode. Bye.